She's a conservative, and I'm liberal. And yet we've been friends for almost 40 years. Everyone says you shouldn't discuss politics, religion, or money. And we say that's exactly what friends should be talking about. Join us as we tackle the conversations you're having in your head, but are too scared to say out loud. Welcome to We've Got to Talk, and welcome, my sweet friend Jolene.
Well, hello, my sweet friend Nicole.
I just want to put some positive energy out there because we are having a hard time, Americans. Yes. We are having a hard time, and we today are going to be discussing, a listener and viewer suggested that we listen and watch. I listened and watched. I will put the YouTube link in the show notes. It was an episode with Ezra Klein from the New York Times, and he interviewed a very respected conservative named Yuval Levin. He is a senior fellow for the American Enterprise Institute, which is a conservative think tank. And they were talking about this past year of Trump, the first year of Trump 2, what it looked like, felt like, didn't look like, didn't feel like. And this listener and viewer was very curious for us to have a look and a listen to the Ezra Klein episode and give us our thoughts and our feelings about what they were talking about and possibly what we feel about this first year. I know we're going to be talking about material that our listener and viewer hasn't had a chance to listen to or watch yet. But I guess let's start with, did you watch it or did you listen to it?
You watched it on YouTube.
Yep. What were your first thoughts about it? I was really struck by his notion of this year of action and possibly a year of inaction. And what I was most fascinated by is the two stories can live at the same time. Mm-hmm. Meaning, he said that you could say that Trump had lots of accomplishments. The southern border is more secure. The wokeness agenda has lessened, if you will. The Iran program has been set back. The war in Gaza has been stopped. The hostages have come home. The big, beautiful bill has been passed. Unemployment is low, and the economy is strong. And he said, at the same time, you could also say that federal law enforcement has been contorted into the service of the president's grudges. The administration has intimidated all kinds of institutions. Squads of masked men pursuing immigrants is prevalent. Federal scientific research is in disarray. Tariffs have increased prices, and both are true at the same time, which I thought was really interesting from a prominent conservative talking about what is going on now, where we seem to be in a world, we seem to be in a society where we say only one thing and then the opposite must be untrue. And what I thought was really interesting about it was how he talked about he being a deal maker versus working with Congress, which we can get into, which is slower and not sexy, not as news friendly. The way he makes the deals is really good for the moment right now versus working through Congress, which is slow and tedious and not sexy, but could have very lasting change versus immediate change.
Okay, so let me start with, Ezra Klein is, I think, ideologically liberal, and so he's interviewing a Republican, but a Republican that is super smart. First of all, both of these men listening to their dialogue, I'm like, God, they're really digging into this, and they're really speaking at an intellectual level, which I'd have to listen to it a couple of times. I would have to rewind and go, wait, what is that?
Me too.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
but I will say that Yuval Levin is also very. He was in the GW White House. And his background is more from understanding and respecting institutions more than ideology. So he thinks that institutions, meaning Congress and...
Well, he called himself a congressional supremacist.
I loved it.
Which
I
loved
that term. Yes.
Like, he was like, I believe in the institution of the Congress.
Right. And he also believes that if you're the deputy secretary of the defense, that, your job is to, bring forth from what the defense is saying to the president, as well as what the president's message is back to the Defense Department. And, so anyway,
there's a sense of debate. Right? There's a sense of debate.
Yes, like there's a back and forth of, this is what the agency wants, this is what the president wants, blah, blah, blah. So understanding all that and listening to this interview really makes you kind of step back and look at it, make sure that you're looking at it from the lens that he's coming from, both men are coming from, but also knowing that that's not Trump's style. Trump is not interested in going through Congress.
I was looking at the history, Jolene, and what was interesting to me is that, like, FDR up to LBJ was much more of an executive power forward way of politics. And then from LBJ to about Trump 1, it was much more of a congressional forward.
But the faith that people have in Congress, I mean, their ratings, congressional likability ratings have been like next to nothing for years. Because they think they're so ineffective. So then Trump comes in and says, great, if we want to get some stuff done, I'm issuing executive orders. And I think what at the kind of towards the end of this hour-long interview, Yuval Levin said, I still believe in checks and balances, and I feel like our system is working because, he talks about how, the courts have put a stop to a lot of the things that Trump has wanted to get by, and that the Senate is not confirming all of the nominees that Trump has put forward. So the system is working, but that Trump is absolutely different than anyone we've had before. And guess what? That's what we wanted. That's what we voted for. Again, I will remind everyone who listens, we had two choices between Biden and Trump. And so even though, I said on our last episode.
What about Kamala?
I think, I'm sorry. I should have said that. Oh, sorry. Good. All right.
But that's interesting.
Let me take that back.
But that's interesting.
It
right?
was between
That's still
Kamala
interesting.
and Trump. Yeah.
But your brain went to Biden.
My brain went to Biden. Yeah.
And that makes sense. There were two choices, and it was resoundingly clear that more than half of us wanted that choice. I would agree with that. One thing that I really took away from this episode was how Trump really is a master of perception. And what he pumps out into the world to make us think a certain way. And what I thought was interesting when you talked about the courts thing, that I didn't know that, like you just said, senators have been active. It's on the website, which I've already put the link in the show notes so that you can see. They have already rejected 54
presidential nominees
below the cabinet level, but we don't hear about it, right?
Media doesn't want to. Media doesn't want to tell you that.
Yeah, he doesn't want to tell you that. And then, like you said, with the courts, he says 573
federal cases.
God bless. Federal cases have been filed. There's 230 that are still to be decided, but he's lost 57% of those cases. And what's wild, Jolene, to me, was that when he appeals, he only appeals what he thinks he can win, and that's what we hear about. We hear about the appealing. And
that's common, right? I mean, within the legal system, you're only going to take to the Supreme Court things that you think you've got a shot at, right?
Of course, and they've won 25%, but they've lost over 200. But no one really knows. I mean, maybe they do. Maybe just you and I don't know. But I thought that was shocking. I was
I think it's interesting that the media doesn't talk about that.
Why don't they talk about it?
Right.
Why don't they talk about it?
Right. I don't know. That I think that's really interesting.
I thought so too.
What that tells me, though, is that everybody was so concerned that the Supreme Court was packed with conservatives that, had a bias and all that. So the fact that they're actually doing the work that they are supposed to do, and they're not being swayed by Trump, they're not being bullied, they're not
Right.
acquiescing to what he wants. The system is working, and I think that we should all, for as much as we heard that the voting for Trump, democracy is going to be dead. Like, democracy is going to die if Trump becomes president. And I think what we're seeing is our system is working. Now, that is not to say that I absolutely approve of the way that he does things, because as I said on previous episodes, I am not a fan of the way that Trump does things. I am a fan of him getting things done. And I think this is exactly what this interview was about. Is he really getting things done? It's activity versus action. I loved that he said that.
I loved that. Because what the media has focused on is like, oh my God, every time there's something happens, every little deal, they freak out. We all freak out. What Yuval Levin was suggesting and pointing out is that they're little deals and they're small movements. And some of the stuff I've actually agreed with, and some of the stuff I don't.
Yeah.
They're little movements versus like systemic change, like real durable change if you went through Congress. And so the next president could go in and undo all the things he's doing, right? And I would think that you'd want to actually endure. And so what's interesting too, Jolene, when you bring up the Senate, is that here as a American citizen, you and I have talked so many times, like, why don't they take this to Congress? Why don't they take this to Congress? Why isn't the Congress doing their job? And then we find out that the Congress is doing some of their job, but we don't hear about it. We don't hear that they're in the back, like, doing the work. I want to hear it. Because then I would have some confidence. Because we're also in a presidency, as Yuval Levin has said, that there's no plan for the next 3 years that this guy named Trump, President Trump, is not planning on working with Congress. Was that your takeaway or not?
Yes. No, that he has no legislative agenda. This was, Yuval Levin's take on it. No legislative agenda. He's using his executive orders for leverage. It's deal making versus policy making. But again, I go back to this is what we voted for. We wanted a non-politician who was not ingrained into the swamp of D.C., that could go in and go, nope, this is what we need to do. And he did. I mean, again, I feel like I've said this so many times. He's gotten a lot of things done. The question is the stick-to-itiveness, I think, of these policies or these changes that he's making. But I think as a constituent, I think, great. He's not sitting around, waiting for, okay, Congress, let's come up with this. And
you don't mind that he's not going to Congress? Or would you, if you had all your wishes come true with him, would you want him to work with Congress?
I think, unfortunately, he's so divisive that if he were to go to Congress, there's nothing that he could do. He would get no bipartisan support from Congress to get anything done because he's just a divisive person. And so I'm afraid that anything that he were to put in front of Congress as at his direction, no one's going to go for it. There isn't a single Democrat that would get behind any initiative that Trump proposes. I mean, do you agree? Do you think that's true?
I don't know. I'm really frustrated with Congress for many reasons. I'm frustrated with the left and I'm frustrated with the right. I think that everyone's so afraid because we've talked about, and I'm not sure when this is going to fall in the lineup, but we interviewed this great guy, Brad Porteous, who's created this website called Bridge Grades, and he's looking at all of Congress and how people, can they collaborate or are they divisive? And the divisive ones are the most famous, unfortunately. And people are too afraid to collaborate because they don't want to piss off Trump and they don't want to piss off the left. It's like, if you actually work with someone, like there's that bill with Josh Hawley and Bernie Sanders. And it's a great bill that I think Trump proposed.
Limits the credit card
to 10%. Neither camp has advertised it, that it's a bipartisan bill. I think it's a shame. I think where we are is such a shame. And one thing that a couple things about this conversation with them, Ezra Klein is very left. He's very passionate. And sometimes I found, and because now that we have done this podcast for over a year, I look through with a different lens. And I will see that he'll ask a question that's a little pointed, or he'll drop he'll drop some vocabulary that I'm like, oh, Ezra, you're so left. and not that I don't agree, but maybe that's not the best verbiage to use.
Yes.
And what I appreciated about this man, he was so calm. I mean, Yuval Levin was so smart, and he was like, sometimes he was nodding, and it's like, I agree with that part, but I don't agree with that part. But I was like, it was so refreshing to see these two human beings really dig in and have an interesting conversation. Because what I loved, one of the things that Yuval Levin brought up, I know this sounds going to sound so basic, but he sort of broke down what the word conservative meant, which I've honestly never thought about.
Wow.
Even though I say in our intro, she's a conservative and I'm a liberal. And I never thought about it the way, at least he thinks about it. And he's a traditional conservative, which is like, it comes from a place of love and conserving and protecting what is written, what is valued, right? And one thing that I loved that he said that I thought was really an important thing for all of us listening and watching to think about, which is, what's the reason you get into politics? What's the reason you're here? Is it to fight against the other person, or is it about something you love? And he said, being at war with each other is not a recipe for effective politics or for a good life. And one thing that it reminded me of, Jolene, was, and I'm going to get emotional, I can feel it, is that I remember the day I called you to do this podcast, to realize that we needed to talk. And I remember saying to you, and I was so surprised at how emotional I got, but I said, Jolene, I know you love this country, and so do I. I love this country. And we need to talk about this, and we need to model something different. Just because I'm labeled a liberal, and just because you're labeled a conservative, we love this country.
Yep.
And right now we're in a place where we're not allowed, like one of us doesn't and one of us does, depending on what side you're on. And I loved that conversation with them because you sensed their mutual respect for each other. Mm-hmm. I was humbled by their information. And I honestly, he gave me a little bit of hope. At the end of the conversation, Ezra asked about like young conservatives. And which I thought was also interesting, was they both acknowledged that Washington is really run by 20 and 30-somethings.
Which I've never heard that before, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you see it with the press secretary. She's young.
Yeah.
One of the podcasts that I don't listen to very much, it's very left, but I like it, Pod Save America, it's Jon Favreau, and he used to work for the Obama White House, and they were all kids. Now they're grown-ups, but they were all kids. Like all these kids with, deep dreams and big beliefs, and they want to go and help their country and they change the world, right? And so the perspective that Mr. Levin gave was how the young people that are in government now, or the young conservatives, all they've known is Trump.
Yeah. For 12 years.
For 12 years, as of the rest of us. But we also knew of a different time. Yeah. We knew of a time that was more conservative versus populist. We knew of a time when you could have a good old-fashioned argument and then give each other a hug and go get a drink. Like, we knew of a time that was different, where you debated and learned from each other.
Right. I thought it was also interesting that he said that young people on both sides, both Democrats and Republicans, are pulling towards the margins.
Yes.
And it's the older people that are trying to move things back to the middle. And that extremism isn't the core of either one of our parties.
That's right.
But that's what we're led to believe.
That's right. That's what the algorithms are showing us, Joe. Right?
That the extremism on both sides is what is that is fueling the fire, and that's not what is really happening in reality.
Yes,
but
yes.
that's what gets the clicks. That's what gets the money. That's what gets the notoriety and the attention and the headlines in the news.
Yeah, it's what do they call it? The rage.
Rage
economy.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yep.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah. I think that one of the things that as an institutionalist, as Yuval Levin is taking a look at, that everyone has always been dependent on the United States because it gave them some stability. It gave them a feeling that United States is going to help us out. The U.S. will be there to help us if we need it.
Well, even the idea of the universities, which is what I remember that he was talking about.
Right, and how dependent the universities are on federal money. And when Trump, said...
And assuming that they will get it.
And so then he finally said, wait, why are we giving you so much federal funding if you are not going to do anything about these protests and, not allowing your students to go to class and your Jewish students feel comfortable walking to class? And so, I think so much of this is Trump being a disruptor. And so I think for someone like Yuval Levin to take a look at this and say that is all this disruption, though, good for the United States? Right. And I think that's where conservatives, at least Republicans, are really kind of probably, butting heads.
Yeah, because he felt that it was dangerous.
Yeah.
He said that the weakening of Congress is a problem and the executive being so strong is a problem. Like, he is a believer in checks and balances. He's worried about scientific research, as am I, because I think it's important. But I also could understand, he broke it down in a way, certainly about the universities, about there is just always been this reliance on the United States, which in some ways, and this is maybe a liberal view versus a conservative view. I mean, I don't love the phrase soft power because I think it's just power, but I think it's really powerful to have people's trust and that people feel that they can rely on you and that you are sort of a safe place or a place for good or you'll help people out. And maybe I would have, again, like you said, like we've talked about a bazillion times with Trump, it's the way he does things. I wouldn't be against him taking a look and going, we're spending a lot of money on this. Let's take a look at this and take this part away, or let's talk about it and change it. And instead of being like, to me, a bull in a china shop or creating good TV, which he does. He creates good TV. He's got us all wrapped around his finger.
We also talked about that on this last episode, that's the art of the deal, right? I mean, that he says, he puts out these really outrageous statements and doubles down on them and makes them even more outrageous when people question him on it, and then gets everybody to the table and they get everybody to have a conversation and then they come to an agreement. And I mean, that is the way that he gets things done. So in terms of the universities, and I mean, he pointed out with some of the federal funding that was supporting these Chinese students that were Chinese nationals that were coming from being told by the CCP to get in there, and whether it's trade secrets or whatever it is, are these people then, are these students taking that intellectual property back to China and saying, screw you, United States? I think that was one of the issues. So, again, is he a disruptor?
Yes.
And is it always positive?
No. Yeah, I think we would agree with that. And I think what just occurred to me is that, like you said in the last episode, that yes, there's an art of a deal. And you said, he might be crying wolf here at this point because we are all onto him. But are we? Because I wonder, and it's occurred to me just now, that the media is like, let's use this to rile up our base and make them crazy and make them click and make them mad. They might know, yeah, he's not going to do those things, but let's pump out that he is.
Yeah, right. Well, I think they have been doing that.
Right? And our attention spans, yeah. And our attention spans are so short. And we're also so fried.
Yeah.
We're so fried.
Because it's one after another after another. I mean, it's something new every week.
The muzzle velocity doesn't end. It just keeps on being pumped out, right?
Yeah, yeah. And we're only through 1 year.
Dude. I thought it was also interesting, and again, it's like the perception. Trump is really good at pumping out what he wants you to see and not talking about what he doesn't want to see. And he pointed out that because Trump spent so much more on defense and on ICE, that he ended up spending 4% more in 2025 than in 2024. But I'd never heard that.
Yeah.
Had you?
Yeah. No, hadn't heard that.
We'll see if the Supreme Court decides to undo tariffs. I mean,
Right.
it's any day now.
Yep.
By the time this airs, we might already know.
That he uses tariffs as leverage. And,
That's right.
Will he lose that ability, that power?
Yeah.
I thought the other thing, too, that you've all said that was interesting, that traditionally the president's role is making difficult decisions, but Trump is advancing tough change. Like, he is the change maker. Isn't that kind of Trump's way? Trump's not going to let somebody else take credit for it. I mean, he's going to, be the one who said, I did this,
Yeah.
I changed this, I made this better. He's not the one that is making the difficult decisions. He's the one who's affecting the change himself. And he's not going to rely on Congress.
Right. And that these deals, this is what he does. Like, one thing that Yuval said, and this was his opinion, was that he thinks that people that are president should have had at least one job in government before they became president. Because he is a fan of checks and balances and how things work, and he's a traditionalist. I totally understand, Jolene, that it's not lost on me, obviously, since before this podcast, that looking at that map of red, there were more than half of us in this country that wanted something different, that wanted something sort of to, like you said, disrupt. I mean, that's kind of the perfect word, and that's what he is doing.
Yeah.
What I struggle with is I really wish Congress on the right and the left, I just wish they were more brave. I wish they wouldn't worry about getting elected again. I'm a believer that we voted you in for a reason, and that's part of your job, is to represent us and not just save your ass.
Yeah.
And I think if you in the Senate and you in the House of Representatives actually spoke from a place of authenticity, not whether you're going to please Trump or not please Trump, we would respond positively. I think all of us, right and left. I don't think that's naive. I think we're sick of the hypocrisy.
Yeah, but with the money people? I mean, they're not going to get money from their PACs and,
I know.
and donors and all that if they
we need
say
to
that.
We need
so
to
then
disrupt.
They don't get reelected. I mean, it's a vicious cycle.
It's horrible. It's a vicious cycle, but I'm like, let's disrupt Congress. It's gross. I find it gross.
I also think it'll be interesting to see, we're getting into the big celebration, 250 years of America, the big birthday. I am hoping that there is some sort of movement from both sides that will take this opportunity, our birthday, and go back to kind of the basics, go back to saying, okay, what really was this country founded on? And can we get back to all of the things that we're proud of to be Americans? And so I'm hoping that this birthday celebration, whatever it is, and I don't know, other than hearing about the UFC fight on the White House grounds
What?
on the 4th of July. Oh,
I know nothing about it.
girl.
Really? Yikes.
Anyway, I'm sure there are going to be
I'm sure it's sponsored by UFC. America's 250th birthday, sponsored by UFC, right?
No, it's an actual fight, a UFC fight that is happening, I think, in the Rose Garden or
Lord,
something.
I can't.
I know. Anyway, I'm hoping that as we start to get into spring and all of the snow melting, that we start to concentrate on America's birthday, and you'll see some patriotism really that it kind of lights a fire under both parties, and we start to kind of get rid of the vitriol. That's what I'm hoping.
I mean, it's a nice hope. I don't know right now. It feels very dark right now, Jolene.
You're usually the kumbaya girl.
I know, but it feels very dark right now. Did you feel like this episode with Ezra and Yuval Levin worth your time? Did you learn something from it?
Yeah, I think my takeaway was that even though he does not, Yuval Levin is a Republican and is not a fan of Trump's, I think his point was that we are still a democracy. We are not an autocracy. Democracy is not dead, and the system still works. And I think that is comforting.
That was my takeaway too, Jolene. I was like, okay, this is something really interesting to talk about with you as a conservative, to see what your take was. But also, I felt equally comforted. Like, wait a second. This man is very smart. He's been in the White House. He's devoted his entire life to this process. And he's saying, I know it seems bad, but basically it's okay.
Yeah, it's going to be okay.
And it's going to be okay. So I feel like, listener and viewer, for just that reason alone, it's worth your time and energy to check out this interview.
Yep.
Do you have a good for the soul, my friend?
I do.
Okay.
Yesterday, I went outside and listened to the snow falling, and it was so peaceful, and it was so quiet, and it was so cold.
Yes.
But just that, like, when there is snow that is falling, it made you realize that, you're getting snow in your area, and I'm getting snow, and, all these, and there was nothing we could do about it. There was not like this. It was something that Mother Nature or God or whoever you want to say, it was just a gift to listen to the silence. And then it was funny because obviously we kind of live in the middle of nowhere. So you heard nothing except this snow hitting the trees and hitting the ground and, light and beautiful. But then I saw somebody in New York this morning on Instagram who had walked to get a cup of coffee, and he said, you know what's so great when you get a big snowstorm in New York is how quiet it is.
How quiet it is.
And he said, I am so enjoying walking because there's not a lot of traffic. There's not, people aren't honking. There's not yelling. There's not. And he said it just was so peaceful. And so that was my good for the soul.
I love it.
Thank you.
I mean, I haven't been outside. I've just been looking at the snow all day, and it's just beautiful and quiet and special. And here, we get alerts all day saying, please stay off the road. Please don't go outside. And when that happens, just this sort of, just this cozy, excuse to just be quiet and enjoy the peace.
Totally.
I like that. On Netflix, you can watch bazillions of episodes of The West Wing. And I had never seen it. So The West Wing started in 1999 and ended in 2006. And it has 7 seasons. And Josh started watching it, And I was like, oh God, bleh. And then, so I didn't see like the first 5 episodes, and I still haven't. But then one day I sat down with him and I was like, oh my God, this is sort of interesting. It was interesting for a couple of reasons. At first, so it's a Democratic House. It's a Democratic president. And you're seeing like all this action, flurry, and excitement. And they do bring up a lot of subject matter in the first season that I would say is fairly woke. And I thought that was really interesting about like, oh, is this when it began? When did it begin that the conservative movement started to... I don't know. Because Aaron Sorkin, who created and wrote this, it must have been going on for a bit that he's, created a television show in 1999. But now in season 2, and I texted this to you, they've introduced a Republican character. She's a conservative character, and she has been hired to be part of the council. And the chief of staff recommended this woman who was a conservative, and they all went crazy. Like, she's not one of us, and blah, 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 blah. And she's such a great character, and you're sort of seeing, like, people getting along and trying to figure it out. And I just recommend it. And at the time, it was fairly revolutionary in television because they used the way they would shoot the television show. People were moving. So you didn't have these long shots of people walking through halls and keeping the camera on them. And they do that. And like all they do is walk and talk in this show. But it's really fun. And I'm learning stuff. I know it's a TV show, but I'm like, oh, that's what that person does. I never understood what the press secretary really did. So for what it's worth, I think it's worth a look. Also because it's corny. And at first I was really upset that it's corny. And now like I kind of love that it's corny because I'm like, maybe we can get back to a place where we can debate and move forward together. Would you rather?
Yes, you go first.
Ooh. My handwriting is so bad right now, I can't read it. Okay, ready? Would you rather be able to erase your memories or be able to erase someone else's memories?
Oh. Like I get to pick and choose?
I would think it's all the memories.
Oh. I think I'd want to go with someone else, and I would do it to somebody I don't like. Right? And so then
what would you do?
Maybe if it was somebody like really mean or like if it was a really evil person or something, and that I could erase all
Who
of
would that
their
be?
memories. Oh, maybe
I
Jasmine
have a couple.
Crockett.
No. Maybe Stephen Miller.
Oh, no.
Yes. Look at us. Still talking to each other.
Okay, you ready? Here's yours.
Okay.
Would you rather have to shovel snow for 20 minutes every day
Okay.
or vacuum sand in your apartment for 20 minutes every day? I mean, this is because we're in this snowstorm,
yes.
and as soon as we're done here, I got to put my stuff on and go help Jeff. We're going to go shovel our driveway.
Right on.
It's gonna be forever. And I'm like, okay, well, it's better than if you lived on a beach and you had to vacuum up sand everywhere. Wouldn't that bug you?
I agree. Because we sometimes live in Utah, we have no snow. It's so sad we can't even talk about it. Like there's no snow on the West, and everybody else has snow. And so I learned about shoveling snow when we first got that house. And what I will say is you have to be careful. You have to like take breaks, make sure your posture's okay, because people have heart attacks shoveling snow. Like it's a ton of work. It's a really good workout, but I would shovel snow.
Exercise.
It's such great exercise. You got to stay hydrated. I know it's cold, but you got to stay hydrated.
Yeah.
And just take some breaks We don't want any heart attacks.
No.
We don't want any sore backs. But yeah, I would absolutely shovel snow. Vacuuming sand. I love sand. I mean, as a concept, I love sand. I don't want it in my house, and it's just going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay,
there you
good.
go. There you go. All right, doll.
Okay, my friend. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
to our
you.
viewer and listener for staying with us and listening. We would love to hear your opinions on this. If you have watched this episode, please let us know. If you've watched the interview, the podcast with Ezra Klein and Yuval Levin, we would love to hear your opinions on it or your opinions on our take on it. Please share this. Please like and subscribe where you can. That helps our algorithms, and it helps us get our message out to more people, that we can be decent and kind to each other, even though we may not agree with each other's political philosophies. We can still respect and love each other for who we are. And we would love to share that with everybody. So please subscribe, like, and share with somebody that you would also like to share our episodes and our podcasts with.
That was very well said. Thank you, sweet, sweet friend. I guess that's it for now. We'll see you next week, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye. We've Got to Talk is produced across the world by the wildly talented, creative, and hilarious team at Bambi Media. Our theme song is Jump Jive Swing by Space Train Unlimited. Thank you so much for listening, and join us every week for another episode of We've Got to Talk.